Welcome back once again to another Battlebots review. We're finally here in the double digits, episode 10. Let's get into this. So the fight card is admittedly one of the lesser hyped ones for me, with several of them seeming pretty obvious as to their outcomes. Still, with the possibilities of upsets and of course that main event, I was definitely still looking forward to seeing what would happen tonight. And that first fight was Riptide versus Captain ShredderBro. And let's be honest, Brian Nave would have needed a miracle to win this one. They mentioned it potentially being Brian Nave's last season, and I could imagine this would have ended up being their last fight with all the damage that I predicted that they would get, and yeah, we're going to get into that. I was a bit on the money on that. Riptide comes out with these anti-horizontal looking wedgelets to try and deflect some blows, while still allowing them to get under ShredderBro. ShredderBro came out with, these big chunky teeth, and the fight begins, and ShredderBro was trying to get away, but ends up driving into the screws. They end up getting hit by Riptide, who ends up just ripping one of ShredderBro's teeth right off. After a few more hits, ShredderBro is sent into orbit and flipped over. Now, this is where the controversy comes in, and I can already tell that the comments are going to be interesting. If Riptide wanted to, they really could have left ShredderBro over. Even though it was still trying to spin, once ShredderBro's flipped over, it's dead. Like, it's gone. It's not self-riding. Riptide continued going in for more. Oh, but what's the problem, TheDominusIgnis? Robots committing huge amounts of damage. That's what makes Spinner so cool. We loved seeing that with Tombstone. Isn't this a bit of a double standard? Yeah, that's where you're wrong. The thing is that there's typically an unwritten rule that if a robot is basically done, unless the other team is saying go in for more, you typically leave them alone because, the team's got to repair that robot, and it's just generally respectful. Even Ray Billings, for the record, goes by this. Remember that fight where Gigabyte's shell just popped right off? If Ray Billings wanted to, he could have fucking decimated Gigabyte beyond repair. But he didn't. Because Ray is, he may play a villain, but he's not going to do that. The "you want more?" I'm pretty sure is an actual question. It's just a common courtesy, really. Apparently, the Riptide team straight up just didn't hear, and so did, the ShredderBro team, and so they just didn't know to stop. So let me make it clear, I'm not here saying Riptide bad. I don't know the Riptide team, but I think it should be made clear that, typically speaking, yes, it's Battlebots. Yes, you expect your robot could potentially get damage to that point, but if it's done unnecessarily, yeah, it's kind of a dick move, I don't know, that was a bit of a sour note, because while normally I would have been like, oh my god, ShredderBro got fucked up, I just couldn't get into it because, it just didn't need to happen. That's like thousands of dollars of damage done right there, when really, once it's no longer necessary, it just loses the fun for me. I'm not saying the Riptide team are bad people. Again, I do not know the Riptide team, though I definitely do think they need to exercise some restraint, because between this and the behavior to the Mad Catter team, it's not a good look for them. So yeah, TLDR, damage good, unnecessary damage bad. Riptide team, I don't know if they're good. I'm not going to say bad, but maybe you show some restraint. There we go. Let's move on. Next up was Mammoth versus Deathroll, which I knew was going to be really one-sided, given that Mammoth is extremely light on armor, and Deathroll is Deathroll. Mammoth seemed to have their own equivalent of forks in an attempt to try and have some attempt at getting under Deathroll, while Deathroll was Deathroll. Deathroll ends up coming out with some small blows against Mammoth, bending them about, but Mammoth did manage to get some good lifting pushes in. Mammoth has one of their little bits ripped off by Deathroll, where they then get stuck on at the screws, allowing Deathroll to get another shot in at the wheel, completely immobilizing Mammoth. This was not much of a fight, as it went about how I kind of expected, and I imagine how everyone else expected. Mammoth is fun, but a robot that basically has no armor against one of the mightier vertical spinners really is only ever going to go one way. Then you have Banshee versus Emulsifier. Now, Emulsifier, I felt, had the overall advantage, with that mighty spinner, and I felt that it would win, but I knew that Banshee likely was going to have an easier time getting under, so it really wasn't certain who the actual winner was going to be. And one thing to lighten the mood, Martin Mason was joining the commentary, which I knew should be a lot of fun. It was nice to hear him talk about, the fight with Big Dill. It's just, again, it's great to have the Roboteers on commentary. Banshee apparently made some further improvements to the Flipper's power, and man, you can tell Martin Mason, he tried to keep up the promo voice, but he could only do it for so long. And oh my god, Emulsifier is a fork. Apparently it wasn't the original setup they intended, but I could see how it maybe would help them in the ground game. The battle begins, and you could see Banshee trying to get around Emulsifier, but failing to do so as Emulsifier got some nice shots in, bending Banshee's armor. Banshee kept going and managed to briefly wedge Emulsifier, but they really couldn't make anything of it. There was a lot of cautiousness on Banshee's part. They got another wedge in, and still no flip. I think there might be some issues with the flipper. Emulsifier gets some more sparks flying as Banshee is struggling to get anything in. After some more hits, Banshee slows to a crawl before finally stopping. Now after this, Emulsifier backs off while Banshee is counted out. Overall, this was an okay fight. It was a shame to see Banshee couldn't do much of anything in this, and Emulsifier, due to the fork setup, didn't quite get some major hits in. You heard me say sparks, but you didn't hear me say there were some big shots or anything, because unfortunately, due to it not being the setup they hoped for, they couldn't really get the most efficient use of that spinner in. Still, it does leave me wanting to see Emulsifier get a match in where they actually get to really get a proper shot in, because that spinner looks like it could really damage an opponent. Still, this was okay, Emulsifier did pretty well. It was time for the main event hype package where they mentioned Whiplash's issues this season. From what I can tell, they tried a number of upgrades under the hood, which, if they could dial it in, could be very good for them in the long term. But here this season, it seems it might have been too much for them to deal with right now. Meanwhile, Monsoon, who has made a grand return, that only winning a fight against a more unproven robot in Horizon meant that they needed a big win here today for round of 32 consideration, almost as much as Whiplash needs to redeem itself. It's two robots that have been high tier and clearly know what they're up against, as they show a lot of respect to each other. I knew this fight should be a lot of fun. Before that, we had a few more fights. Copperhead versus Kraken was up next, and Copperhead had wrecked its opponents up until this point, and while normally I'd rate Kraken to at least last, if not win, I knew that the issues that they were having made me a little bit more uneasy about their chances, and worried that the Copperhead curse would reach them next. Copperhead looked about the same, but apparently had some thicker top armor to deal with some overhead blows, and Kraken looked about the same as usual. The match begins, and Kraken raises forth but misses that initial ram, allowing Copperhead to get some shots in. Though you can begin to hear the weapons roar as Copperhead gets some more shots in as Kraken flails around, and partially because due to the weapon being up to speed, it seemed that they were just losing control. Narwhal is taken out by Copperhead before Kraken is tipped over, who is unable to self-right, though Copperhead tips it back upright, so the fight can continue. Copperhead sends them into the screws, and Matsberg essentially just taps out, realizing that their goose was cooked. This was pretty one-sided, but another decent encounter for Copperhead, who is decimating every competition it's in so far. Every fight it's been in has been an absolute stomping. I do have to feel for the Kraken team. This new version of Kraken clearly has so much potential. It's got an amazing bit of drive to it. That thing is super fast. It's got an awesome weapon, as we saw from the beta fight, but they just cannot get it together for that complete package. I do hope they continue to work on it, however, as I'm willing to bet that if they can get that all together, and maybe work on that front wedge, I don't think it's quite as low as they need it to be, I think that they could have a very dangerous robot. Copperhead, meanwhile, is on the best run of its career. I'm so happy for them. Next up was Horizon vs Shredder, and I'll admit I wasn't exactly excited about this fight given Horizon's previous performances. The spinners didn't seem to be very strong, and Shredder's armor is typically next level. Horizon comes out with a very long mini-bot called Sunrise, and had some heavier top armor to deal with the hammer. The battle begins, and Horizon spinners are going, though they weren't spinning the full body at first, so clearly they weren't going full pelt. They got some good shots on Shredder, but the spinners do seem to stall whenever they make a hit, which isn't great. A missed shot from Shredder though means that Horizon is able to get right back up to speed. After a second shot from Horizon, Shredder does manage to get another shot in, though they follow with some more misses. And I think we're really starting to see the potential of Horizon's design here. It's really throwing Shredder off as Shredder keeps whiffing blows while Horizon keeps going in at the sides. Horizon may not be getting in killing blows, but they're doing better than expected as they start ripping into the armor. Shredder is continuing the aggression and they do manage to get some more shots in. Horizon does struggle to get the spinners going as fast as I would like, but the robots are going back and forth. As Shredder gets a series of blows in, the drive seems to be breaking down for them. Their Omni wheels definitely seem to be giving up on them, but a disc of Horizon also seems to give up the ghost. This means that Horizon can't attack as much, and that means Shredder gets one last Hail Mary in at the end. The match ends up going to Horizon in a split decision, and honestly, I was surprised by this match. While I'm sad that Shredder did so poorly this season, I have to say, while I was a bit down on how Horizon spinners weren't going up as fast as I would like, they really got to show the potential of this machine. You know, it really was kept throwing Shredder off. You know, Team Bots FC weren't sure how to go at it, it's felt like, and the spinners did more damage than you maybe would think, given how small they are. So, overall, I was pleasantly surprised that the unproven machine was able to do something. Now, Shredder did say that they were going to appeal the decision. However, I agreed with the judge's decision, as Shredder to me was just poorly controlled, and while they were maybe more aggressive, the damage was on Horizon's side here, though I could see that being more of a grey area, so I can't blame Team Bots FC for wanting to appeal the decision. After the ad break though, it was announced that the decision was still going to go to Horizon, and yeah, this does pain me as a Shredder fan, as that means that they can no longer appeal, which I pray doesn't bite them in the backside. Next up was Ominous vs ShredderBro. Two robots I'd been excited for, but have yet to see standout performances of, yet after seeing Horizon do so well, it gave me a hope that we were going to see these bots do incredibly this time around. The match began and both robots got up to speed, but ShredderBro struggled at first with Ominous getting a nice shot in. ShredderBro then got up to speed, turned around, and sent Ominous flying with a huge blow. Ominous comes back in, but ShredderBro's drum is down, and Ominous's disc spinner also seems to be out. That almighty blow has taken out both weapons in this situation. A massive shame really, as it turns into a pushing fight. One of Shreddit's wheels seems to not be working correctly, apparently someone got like high centered or whatever, and Ominous was just avoiding ShredderBro entirely. There was a little lift from Ominous's spinner as it seemed to get working again, and they got a small dig in, but not much, as clearly both of these robots are in a right state. However, ShredderBro ends up getting beached. They managed to get free, but this fight is so boring at this point that they are desperate to not make you change the channel. They're reminding you, please don't change the channel, we're begging you, we promise, Whiplash versus Monsoon is going to be amazing, please don't change the channel. This is the kind of thing that would have made it on the YouTube channel back in the day as like a highlight, a bonus fight, you know, one of those ones where the raw footage would have been in, no commentary. Ominous does flip ShredderBro over, and they get another small shot in, but holy cow, this fight was bad if Battlebots is just begging you to stay. I think it went to Ominous. And genuinely, like, recounting this has actually started to make me forget the details. This fight reeked. After an incredible early shot from ShredderBro, both robots just weren't able to get going, really. And these robots aren't pushers, so there wasn't much that they could really do. This fight fell off hard. Like, oh my god. Thankfully, though, it was time for the main event, Whiplash versus Monsoon. Two incredible Battlebots, and I was surprisingly unsure of who would win. While I would normally lean towards Whiplash winning, as, you know, they are typically a very good control bot, Monsoon was so cool and powerful, and Whiplash was having so many issues that I wasn't sure what could happen. If Whiplash messed up, Monsoon could take them out with their new, more powerful spinner. Monsoon came out with the disc, which at first I didn't understand, but when they explained that, you know, they didn't want to get beached, which was a real problem for Monsoon, I kind of understood. The disc would give them more ability to self-right, so If Whiplash did lift them, they could keep going for more. Now the buzzer sounds and Whiplash races out, trying to get to Monsoon before they can get up to speed. They manage to get under Monsoon and then ram them into the wall. Monsoon do get a small blow in, but they manage to flip themselves over. A great lift from Whiplash is then retaliated with a much better blow in return from Monsoon. Whiplash is actually not spinning their weapon up at the early stages as they're going solely with their lifter arm. Whiplash pushes Monsoon around and with a pin, Monsoon eventually gets free and does get some more strikes in, getting a lot of sparks in. Whiplash is dancing around but does get hit pretty hard, and so after some shots you can see that Whiplash's forks are bent. Whiplash rams Monsoon into the corner, but the top armor of Whiplash is starting to bend off from the repeated strikes from Monsoon's disc. There's a pulverizer shot to Monsoon, and Whiplash resumes pushing Monsoon around. Monsoon gets some more shots in return, causing a wheel on Whiplash to die and ripping one of the forks off. Monsoon and Whiplash both begin spinning up as Whiplash, now that they can no longer be a control bot, they've got to go spinner to spinner, as the two exchange some blows in the closing moments. The decision is given to Whiplash, and overall this was a very fun fight from both robots. Monsoon got some amazing damage in, but Whiplash remained aggressive. We got to see the Whiplash we all know and love as they got a lot of control in this fight, and even when they couldn't be a great control bot anymore towards the end, they used that spinner. This is why I'm a massive Whiplash fan, and I've said that they are perfect for the Battlebots formula, because they've got the four-wheel drive for the aggression, they've got the lifting arm for the control, and they've got the spinner for damage. That to me means that they are just a brilliant robot. Monsoon, however, did appeal the decision, and it turned out so did ShredderBro. However, both were unsuccessful. So much so that what was previously a split decision with Monsoon and Whiplash ended up becoming a unanimous decision when reviewed. So, not a big deal, Whiplash wins either way, but I did have to bite for Team Monsoon. You know, it going from a split decision to a unanimously against them decision. Overall, I'd say this was a fairly fun episode, despite that sour spot in the Shredder Raider Riptide match and that ShredderBro Ominous match. A lot of fun battles were had, and it's just getting all the more exciting as the series progresses. You know, we're wondering now who's going to make it to the round of 32, and it just is so much fun. I cannot wait to see the round of 32 be announced. Now, there's going to be 2 weeks of no Battlebots, so if you're subscribed to the channel, you can feel free to leave me some recommendations of what you would like me to cover in the comment section down below. I'm going to be working on those videos right now. So, you know, let me know what you'd like me to do in the 2 weeks of no Battlebots. And yeah, I'll take into account any recommendations. I'd also like to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to leave a like on this video. Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of this episode of Battlebots. You know, did you like it? Did you dislike it? Why? And also feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more so that you can be notified of future videos on the channel. I'm also reviewing Robot Wars from Series 1, so if you want to see just how far we've come, well, that's a great way to find out, because, oh my lord, the difference is staggering. But with all that being said, I'll see you all next time. Bye, guys!